My name is Ron Cannan, City of Kelowna Councillor, and following comments are my personal opinion and do not reflect those of Council or the City.
Welcome to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, mortgage broker Taylor Atkinson.
And I am your real estate agent host, Matt Glenn. What's going down, Taylor?
Sun's shining, life is good, and that means property taxes are coming up. So if you have gotten your notice or haven't gotten your notice, look into it. So you have to apply for the homeowner grant. There's obviously two grants. If you're over 65, a homeowner, and then if it's a rental property, you don't get a grant. So you have to apply to the province and then you make your payment to the city. So make sure you do that. Yeah. Otherwise, there's a 10% penalty.
Taylor found out the hard way. I've been told.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Carrying on with our tax discussions. Also, June 25th, potentially there's, capital gains inclusion.
Yeah, maybe capital gains.
Yeah.
Lay it on us, Taylor. What's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, they came out with this a few months ago. They said they were going to do it. It's kind of a tactical play, I think, politically, but they still haven't passed the actual bill that implements this. So Kim Moody, if you guys don't follow him, he's very active on a bunch of platforms, but puts out some awesome content and blogs. Very intelligent guy in terms of accounting. I just want to paraphrase something he wrote. So he goes, with the House of Commons set to go on summer break around June 21st, the tax bill will most likely be formally introduced in September. In the meantime, draft legislation may be published over the summer by the Finance Department, officials said. They stressed that all core aspects of the capital gains hike will be introduced in Monday's motion. This was this week. He goes on to say, this is Kim now, he quotes, he goes, really? If I understand this correctly, this means that draft legislation for capital gains inclusion rate will not be introduced tomorrow. Instead, we are simply going to get core principles via notice of ways of means of motion. Finishes off, he goes, tax is too complex to be left to core principles. How can you expect Canadian taxpayers to plan their affairs correctly when the detailed legislation proposals will not be released and instead taxpayers and their advisors are expected to rely on core principles? I continue to be astounded on how incompetent this government is. That was Kim Moody, not me, but that does resonate with me. So basically what this means is they've come out with this proposal and they're communicating that they are moving forward with it. And June 25th is the date that it will be hypothetically implemented. However, they're probably not going to actually pass law until September, but they're like retroactively going to stick to June 25th as their date.
Which is crazy because you got to sell your property or sell your capital gain before the June 25th, but you won't know until September if you should have.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, what is the point of that? Why don't you just say, you know what? We came out with this too fast, like most of our legislation recently. Why don't we table this until like January 2025, which likely could happen as well. So that's kind of where we're at. So if you're in that group, there are, potential ways to mitigate some of this, but it's just hard because you're going to be spending time and money to try and mitigate something that you don't know what the implications of it are. So
I saw too, like this capital gains tax has just been rubbing me the wrong way the last few weeks. So on Twitter, or X now, or whatever we're calling it, I saw this debate about these people out east selling their cottages. They're griping about having to pay capital gains on the cottages that they've had in the family for years. And the argument was like, well, these people, they're buying real estate, in this case, locally. They're buying in their own province, their own country. Instead of going on these overseas trips to Europe or Australia or wherever they're going, their money is staying here when they could have been going out everywhere else for every summer of their life. And now they just get penalized for it. And when you think about that on the massive scale, it's just incentivizing people to just beat it and spend their money elsewhere instead of doing it here, because you have no idea what's going to come up in the future now with all these stupid rules coming on. And it's a little irritating. It also feels like it turns the conversation into like crabs in the bucket. As soon as somebody gets a little bit ahead, you get all the other little crabs reaching up and pulling them back down and being like, get your ass down to the bottom of the bucket with like that. It's just like, should be helping each other up, not pulling each other down with these stupid arguments. It's just, I don't know why it took so long for me to really resonate.
Well, I mean, I'm actually stoked. I mean, yeah, it's not every day Matt gets excited talking about tax. So this is an awesome day for me. But the narrative they're trying to turn is like, and the finance minister has come out publicly with a couple bold statements saying like, do you really want to live in a country where children and families are struggling because, the wealthy 1%? It's like, it doesn't actually affect like the wealthy 1%. like you're affecting everyone, mostly entrepreneurs or families that are trying to build something like a good life. It also really hurts our economy in terms of people trying to invest in Canada because there's just no margin for profit right now. So yeah, those are the kind of two current topics. June 25th, obviously keep an eye out for that. And then July 1st for property tax, or July 2nd, since July 1st is Canada Day. Yeah. And then speaking about, City of Kelowna, today's guest, awesome guy. We've both been trying to reach out to him for a while to get him on. I really enjoy a lot of his positions on some certain policies.
Yeah.
And yeah, really liked having him on. So Ron Cannan from City of Kelowna, super fun guy to chat to. Pretty hard guy to get on the pod, but seems like he's very willing to pick up the phone or meet for a coffee or something. So yeah, I think you guys will really enjoy this one.
It was a fun conversation. We asked him a lot of questions. He was willing to answer them. I don't think all of our questions were softballs either. I think it was a good conversation.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to just throw his opinion out there. And, I do think we like the growth in the city, but I do think he has a very good, view on things, especially since he's been in politics for so long at such a high level that he does have the long-term vision, and he has seen how things play out. So the main thing I got out of it was hey, we need some infrastructure planning in Kelowna. Yeah, we need to build, and yeah, there's, a vacancy issue and affordable houses, but it's kind of the chicken and the egg. And at this point, we need to start looking at some of that infrastructure as well. So yeah, a very insightful conversation. Really enjoyed being able to connect with him. And he is actually one of the guys that brought up professional soccer coming to Kelowna for one of the games. So if you don't have tickets for that,
yeah, very cool.
Yeah, give it a quick Google. They're playing at the Apple Bowl. So,
and this episode, like every episode, is sponsored by Century 21 Assurance Realty, the best brokerage in town. My brokerage, I think it's legit. I trust it with my own career, and I think you should too.
It's a bold statement. Matt's career is a very important one,
yeah,
and it is taking off, much like Century 21 Assurance Kelowna. So,
yeah. Oh my God, I needed that tire pump for the weekend, dude. Thank you. Appreciate that.
The weekend, it's only what is it, Tuesday? Yeah.
It's always Thursday in my book.
It's been a long week for Matt.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah. Okay. Well, enjoy the show, guys. It's a good one. Ron Cannan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome to the show, Ron.
What a pleasure.
Thank you.
I heard lots of great things, and it's nice to virtually meet you.
Yeah, I've seen you at some hearings, and I've always quietly applauded some of your position. Yeah, I like your voice in there. So how we like to connect with our listener is basically just tell us about your kind of perfect Friday. What's your day look like? What gives you some energy, productivity, and what do you do for fun leading into the weekend?
So you said you come down to City Hall on a Tuesday to listen to a public hearing?
A couple times, yeah.
Pretty cheap entertainment, I guess, is it? You got to get a life for it.
Yeah.
Friday, every day's a Friday in the Okanagan, but
good answer.
Enjoy everything as far as this time of life. We're 3 daughters are adults now. We got 5 grandchildren, so get a chance to spend as much time with them. They range from 1 year to 17 years of age, so much time I have a chance to spend with them. And often, we have family arrangements as far as dinner goes, and it looks at have a Friday evening Shabbat dinner and spend time together. We have a little different living arrangement. We sold our place, and phase of our life, we decided we're going to downsize. We sold our place in Wilden, and we're going to move into a townhome. And some friends said, well, they had sold theirs or looking to sell, and we ended up buying a place in Hall Road, and we have a house. It's a large house, and we have our own living arrangements, and then we share cooking, and we have a family suite. So when our kids come from out of town or guests come, we call it God's Lodge, and it's open for the guests to stay. So we have lots of people come, people from different parts of the world, missionaries, and others have spent time and family and friends. So we love entertaining. We love spending time with family and friends, and that's whenever we can, whether it's Friday or Saturday or whatever day of the week.
I love that. We talk about that quite often, like how funny it would be to have a bit of a commune and just sell the houses and get a big acreage. And yeah.
Who do you talk about that with?
Closer friends than you.
I was going to say, we've never had any commune talk, Taylor. We're going to have to talk to you about this after.
Yeah, so we had to clarify with the kids. We don't throw our keys in there on Friday and, the swingers club. No, it's community living. The fact is that it's something that I talked about for the same thing, 30 years. Why do everybody have 30 of everything? Man?
Yeah.
So I have a set of drums. I could have a music room, and you can have a big TV. We had a set up for my partner in living in the arrangements. He's a big hunter, so we got a stuffed big Bart, 8-point elk hanging on the rafters, and deer, and the gun racks and all. It's a variety of the best of everything coming together and family. And I think it's something that people say, yeah, it's strange, but I encourage to. We've been living for over a year and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. We have so much stuff right now in life. Everyone's got two of everything and you just don't need it. Yeah. Anyways, we could talk about that for quite a while. Why don't we jump into what your current position is as a city council member? How'd you get there?
Yeah, how'd you get there?
Yeah.
My medication wore off, so I ended up on council. Basically, I'll take a step back. I grew up in Edmonton and had a variety of careers. I was in sales with large companies, Coca-Cola, sales supervisor, and Hershey Foods. We had our own grocery store and a gas station in Edmonton, managed a store in Jasper National Park. End of 89, my mom passed away, and I played drums in a band. We played New Year's Eve, and I woke up New Year's Day, and it was like 35 below and 3 feet of snow, and I figured there's more to life than this. So we had 2 children at the time, and I had a week off. So my wife and I hopped in the car, came to Kelowna, and bought a house. It was under construction, bought a new house for $139,000 in 1990, and didn't know anybody, and we didn't have a job or anything, and just started out, and it's been one of the best things we did in our life. So we have our 3 daughters and 5 grandchildren now. And that's been fantastic. So part of the journey when I got here, I was working in sales for both media sales and then Costco Wholesale was their marketing rep. Got to know a lot of people, and some people encouraged me to run for city council in 1996. And there's 27 candidates, and we put a team together, and 3 daughters, my wife, we went door knocking, and fortunately I was elected, and then ran again in 1999 and 2002. And then the spring of 2003, I got a phone call from the Federal Conservative Party, said there's a nomination for the retiring member of Parliament, Werner Schmidt, and you have to sell memberships and get people out. So May of that year, we had a nomination meeting, and Norm Letnick is a good friend at the time, and we went out for a walk up at Knox Mountain, and he wanted to run, so he ran, and Ben Stewart came in third, Norm in second. I was fortunate in first, and then Norm and Ben spent the rest of their career, did a great job representing their respective areas in provincial legislature, and I was served for almost 10 years as a member of Parliament.
Wow.
It was a great chapter in my life and experience that would have never imagined to be part of the journey of our lives. You say you wake up one day and you never know exactly, and I encourage people that are wanting to get into community service. That's how I was raised, my youngest of 4. My parents were always engaged and involved in the community. So just try to make a difference.
Awesome. And so what's your current role right now as people that don't see behind the scenes in terms of, what happens in the city? Are you guys at, town hall every day? What does it look like for you?
Yeah. So basically what I ended up doing after federal politics is I had my own consulting company, and I spent 6 years as a business relationship manager with Interior Savings. I still do some commercial consulting for financing, and then I work around city council meeting, which is generally every Monday, in the summertime, every second Monday, and then once a month on Tuesdays, we have a public hearing. And then there's different committee meetings during the week. Basically, you're on call 24/7 because in public office, not necessarily you are on in the sense that whenever you're in public, if I go to Costco or to the mall or out to an event, people will talk to you. And so my family have grown up with me being in public office for the last close to 20 years of service. So used to the fact that, we're leaving dad in the car, we're going to roll down the window a little bit and you got to stay in there. You're not coming out. They want to go in and go someplace quickly. But that's just part of the reality of when you're working and serving the community, and love to meet people and hear their concerns. So during the week also, we get our council meeting agendas usually Wednesday afternoon. So then it gives you an opportunity for the next few days over the weekend to connect with residents' concerns, go visit properties that are being rezoned, and answer any questions that are needed to be answered from staff and clarification, and be ready for the meeting. So it's some of the background work that takes place. And then, of course, all the different events you get invited to. And we have a schedule. Right now, I'm deputy mayor till September, and then we take turns every 6 months. There's a rotation.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Is that like the majority of council's work right now is, I guess, working with the OCP that you guys came out with a couple of years ago and essentially approving or not approving certain developments, or working with developers, or working with vacancy? Like, what's the main time consumer for you guys?
Local governments are creatures of the province. So I kind of look at the analogy: the federal government are the grandparents, the province are the parents, and local government are the children. So we are guided by local government community charter, and we look at, our limitations. So we have to follow the direction of the provincial government, and specifically the most sweeping changes probably in decades of land use, Bill 44 and Bill 47, which upzoned about 26,000 properties in Kelowna, which has been a tremendous amount of work for Mr. Ryan Smith, our Director of Planning, and the city planning staff. So they've, done as good a job as possible in the time constraints that they had to try to address some of the workload. Like a lot of communities weren't as far ahead in Kelowna in their planning department, so they have till June 30th to get these documents in place. Some have asked for an extension, but generally this for Kelowna, we're in a good position. We were leading the way in densification and infill. For example, the RU7 zoning that was in place several years ago that have 4 units per one lot. That was great success and basically modeled throughout other areas in the province, and was noted by the Minister of Housing.
Yep.
That's been out here several times, Ravi Cajon, the Honourable Minister of Housing, and he said that Kelowna's set the benchmark in many ways, and that's accolades to staff for that as well.
So I guess personal opinion, because that's what everything is on this show for you, do you feel that the densification plan that provincially has come out is the right move?
Personally, no. I understand what the province is trying to do, but it's not going to solve the problem in the sense that we have an affordability crisis, not just a housing crisis. Kelowna is a very desirable place to live, and we have limited land, so we can densify all we want, but the land costs bring into the equation of the marketability. For example, when we had those RU7 lots where homes were selling for $200,000, so you get 4 homes on one lot, and it's basically $50,000 a door for your land cost. And then all of a sudden, greater and greater demand. They've seen the success. So people could sell those originally around $500,000, but the land cost now went up to $800,000 to $1 million. So you're into $200,000 to $250,000 a door. And now your extended costs are retailing for $750,000, $850,000 for a single unit. So that is one of the issues. But the bigger issue from a national perspective is the number of immigrants that are coming to Canada. We're all basically immigrants, and we're founded on a nation of hard work, of immigration. But the numbers need to be more reflective of the reality of what we can absorb from a housing perspective. And the federal government and CMHC, which is Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, indicated about 250,000 homes could be built a year, maybe 240. The highest number, I believe, was about 270,000 in the 70s when the home was 1,000 square foot box kind of thing, and less regulations and all the building codes. So right now we're looking at maybe 250,000. So there's a limit of how many human resources so you can actually build. So bringing in over 1 million people into the country created a challenge and a huge demand that we're suffering now across Canada in many cases.
So, we've asked this on the show quite a few times now, but who was pushing to have this level of immigration? Why was there so much immigration happening? Everyone you talk to about housing prices, they always say the reason why is because there's too much immigration, not enough housing being built. And it's obvious that's what's happened. But who was asking for this many immigrants to come in? It feels like even Trudeau wasn't even asking about this. It just feels like it just happened and no one knew why. What are your opinion on that?
Well, it's kind of scary if the Prime Minister doesn't know why.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah. Was there a group of people, was there some sort of lobbyist that said we need to have this many people? It feels like nobody wanted it and we ended up with this. So it's just an odd situation.
Ultimately, all I can speak is, my experience serving almost 10 years in Ottawa as a member of Parliament. We had immigration numbers, we were pushing 300, going to 400,000, moving that direction. And it was pushing the envelope, and we are obviously a very desirable country to move to, and we have to balance that. We need the skills, the labor to help our country to sustain its growth. And, our birth population numbers are dropping, so immigration needs to fill that. But we also need what type of immigration. My wife's worked for a doctor for over 25 years and been trying to help them bring a specialist in who was trained in Canada and has not been able to get, the documentation through Ottawa. We had provincial nominee program approved and all the rest. So it's very frustrating for employers that are looking for proper trades. So the engineering industry did a really good job when I was a member of Parliament. They lobbied, and we were able to get standards recognized north and south of the border. So if an engineer is working on a project in Seattle and they live in Vancouver, they could go across the border, north and south. And now we can have the ability to east and west. I mean, if a nurse is practicing in Ontario, why shouldn't she be able to practice in BC, or doctor? They have interprovincial regulations within our own country. We have interprovincial barriers, which is something I battled with for many years. We still have, for example, wine. We can't ship wine from BC to Ontario.
Yes.
It's an ongoing saga. And then immigration, trying to get different industries, every profession, whether it's education, healthcare, throughout different standards. Like a red seal carpenter can work across Canada, but we don't have a red seal designation, for example, a teacher or a nurse, which is something I think makes a lot of sense. I understand from a legal perspective because there's different laws from each province and territory, but other professions should be able to especially move across Canada more freely.
Yeah. I guess to go back to, our topic on density and like, what is the solution, I guess? And this ties into immigration since, okay, well, we can't just, hindsight ship, a lot of people out of the country to reduce our population. Moving forward, what is the solution if infill, land development, everything's kind of stacked against us? What are the options?
Well, look at Canada. We do have a little bit of land here, the second largest land mass in the world. And my daughter and her husband are RCMP officers in Burns Lake. She was in Kitimat. You can buy a nice house there for $400,000, $450,000. So if you can work remotely, not everybody can necessarily live in the most expensive city in Vancouver, the Okanagan. In some cases, you have to start in a community that is more realistic and affordable. So that's one thing. Like I said, I grew up in Edmonton. I bought my first house when I was 20 years old. And it would be virtually impossible for any 20-year-old today to buy a house in Kelowna unless you inherited a great deal of money.
So, but isn't that capitalism at work? That the fact that a house in Burns Lake is $400,000 here, you can't even buy a lot for $400,000. Like, isn't that kind of the incentive already there? Like, what else could the government do to incentivize people to move to Burns Lake or to Kitimat or to anywhere up north?
Well, I think less often the case is when government gets involved, it creates the problems. In some cases, there's too much regulation and can create challenges. I mean, there's incentives as far as a northern living allowance. That's only in the middle of our province, so it's central BC.
Yeah.
For many people, they love it. It's a Four Seasons lifestyle that you choose, right? So if you're in Prince George or in Terrace, that neck of the woods, Vanderhoof is the geographic center of the province, and there is good value for your real estate. However, it comes from a lifestyle perspective. And I don't encourage people, I don't want to make them move out of our city, but the reality is that you're not going to be able to buy necessarily your first house out the gate. You might be able to buy a starter condo of some sort and move your way up working in Kelowna, because we also need service industry representatives and people to work in the service sector. So there are the element of affordability. And I think from the province, both provincial and federal government perspective, the dilemma that we're facing in council right now is that we're knocking down housing units, multifamily units that have been built in 40, 50 years ago that need some, TLC, but people are paying maybe $1,200, $1,400 a month rent, and they've been living there for 15, 20 years, and some are on disability, some are retired. Yeah. So if you knock down that building and to build a new affordable housing unit, well, the new rental units are $2,200. Yeah. Well, even if you give them a discount, like some municipalities will give 20% first right of refusal. Yeah. So that's where we need the provincial and federal governments to step in and help that gap in some cases for specific sectors, but less reluctant to want to get too much government interference, let the market play out.
Knocking down the affordable multifamily to build newer affordable multifamily. You're talking about the one on Bernard and Gordon, like ones like that.
There's one on Mill Street. We just had on Monday, and Mill Street is another one that we've put on hold.
Yeah. So those are kind of outlier cases, but the densification of downtown. So a big issue with the RU7 issue, like the infill, was that basically there wasn't enough properties that were zoned that way. So it just drove those, 900 houses or 800 houses. You're right. They completely skyrocketed in value, but it was almost because there wasn't enough of them. But the new provincial regulation says every lot can have 4 units. Wouldn't that help a little bit with that?
Yeah, I mean, over time, we'll see, definitely. I mean, you're going to have some ability to increase density. It also depends on, now you're looking at land assemblies now. People are doing more and more land assemblies. And when people have expectations of their property value, then a developer has to get so many units per acre in order to make it viable. So I understand from the property owner, they have a right to redevelop if they want. And it's also, don't want to hold that against them, the fact that they want to build something that's improving for the community, but we also have to balance that with the realistic needs. So if you're kicking 20 families out of their home to get $1,200 one month's rent for moving. And where do we move them? To the rail trail and have more homeless people?
Yeah. I mean, expectation is a massive word that I think is overlooked with a lot of people these days. And it ties into a lot of that conversation is, okay, yeah, we have the expectation that everyone should be able to live in Kelowna and it should be affordable, but maybe it's just never going to be an affordable city. It's kind of like the Vancouver, Toronto, New York, Shanghai. It's just going to be more expensive. And then the expectation to kind of tie into the, land assembly part is, yeah, I think I kind of agree with you, Ron. I don't know if you've really stated a huge opinion on it, but I don't know if the policy is entirely correct for densification, because we're taking away single family homes that are essentially bridging the gap between, say, the condo market and the more like higher end single family luxury homes. We're never going to rebuild a $800,000 single family home. So we're going to tear all those down and build apartment buildings. Yeah, it creates more units on the market that are affordable, but then how do those people move from, say, a condo to a now single family house if we're not building any more $800,000 single family homes? Yeah. So I think expectation is the big one of, where do people want to live? Like, are we just building affordable units that people don't at the end of the day want? But I guess if it's purpose-built rental and we need that accommodation to provide so people can come here and work, that's a good start. But I guess where do we bridge that gap? How do we allow people to meet their expectations, I guess?
It's a great summary. And the fact is there's no silver bullet and it's not an easy solution. And the fact that, yes, we do need purpose-built rental housing. And that's basically what's being built right now. And if it wasn't for rental market, there wouldn't be a lot of construction. There's some projects that have been approved from previous lower interest rates. It takes 2 to 3 years to build some of these projects out. But specifically to meet the needs of our community, you're right. There is that challenge as far as what are people's expectations. You said $800,000 for a single family. No, it won't happen. Now you might have $800,000 for a 2-bedroom condo or something, right? Or townhome. That's the dynamics of a changing city. And one of my challenges, I got elected in October of 2022 and inherited an official community plan that had significant densification and hasn't been reviewed since Bill 44 and Bill 47. I would like to see that change because I don't agree with the direction of the official community plan. I think it's changing the whole character of our community. The growth is pace at densification I don't believe our roads and our infrastructure can handle. Our healthcare system, hospitals at 120% of capacity. There's no plans to expand the hospital. Our school systems are bursting at the seams. The province is going to be making some announcements for some schools, but it takes several years for that. And of course, the big issue with mental health and homelessness, we need 24/7 treatment. I've spoken with the Minister of Housing, Minister of Mental Health, the Minister of Finance, Interior Health, and they all say, well, housing first. I said, that's great. I had the honor of being part of the government in 2008. Federally, we introduced Chez Soi housing first, but you need the 24/7 mental health treatment, the wraparound services. And they say, oh yeah, we know there's gaps in the system. So what do? They provide safe supplies, safe consumption sites, safe shelter spaces, but they ignore what we really need is we need the mental health treatment. We close Riverview down and other facilities, and we don't want to use the word institution. Let's call it a campus of care where you're looked after 24/7. And some people need to be incarcerated or be detained for the rest of their life because of mental illness. And that's the reality of the situation. Because I know I had a brother that was bipolar and he died in house fire in age of 50, and I had another brother who just died a couple of years ago at 64 of cocaine, fentanyl. So I've lived it and I understand. I've talked with so many professionals that they're frustrated, medical professionals with Interior Health have a bureaucratic perspective to a clinical solution, and we have waiting. And probably the best summary I had was somebody said to me that what they're doing is putting a bandage on a broken leg.
Yeah. So you brought up the OCP. And so I have a question about this OCP is like the previous council and mayor, like Bazran and company, had worked on this OCP, and then it feels like it got approved, and then there was an immediate election and there was a new council. And then now you guys have to deal with the OCP. Like, why is it like that? Like, that just seemed weird from somebody that doesn't know, like very green and this. Like, why was it like that? And is that how you think it should be? Or?
Well, no, I mean, official community plans get updated and their guidelines, they're living, breathing documents, and they're supposed to be, sort of overview or a guiding document to be updated, every 5 or 10 years. And that's the challenge because it happens in between elections, specifically because of the legislation that was probably the most draconian in my mind. For 20 plus years I've been around local government and working in government is provincial government's densification plan, and our OCP has never been really reviewed to see the implications. For example, on Lakeshore Road from KLO to El Dorado Hotel, In the 2040 plan, so that's the official community plan, was supposed to have just over 1,000 units developed in that corridor by 2040, so another 16 years to go. And we've already surpassed that to about 135%. And, we got Shasta Mobile Home Park, probably going to redevelop one day. We have the former radio station site in Cook and Gordon. They've got an application they're looking at, 6-story. We have across from Gyro Beach, now they're putting in 4 to 6-story buildings across on the east side of Lakeshore with a 2-lane road. To me, it boggles my mind why we're pursuing this direction when we've got 1,500 units already approved with really, like I said, the infrastructure is, you have a bottleneck, and when you're filling up a bottle of water, you can only put so much water in, it can only go in so fast, and it just overflows.
Yeah.
So, traffic on that road's already awesome.
It's called Lakeshore Crawl for a reason, I guess.
No, I agree. It sounds like although we love the growth of the city and what comes with it, it also has a negative implication. And so I guess with that said, are there plans to focus more on infrastructure, medical, school systems, mental health, like all the very needed topics that you discussed?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not against growth either. I look at what makes sense for a community and the quality of life. What I'm hearing from people is that the quality of life is going down. Growth can be positive. There's lots of upside in the sense you have an increased tax base. That's a whole other issue. And our taxes are going up higher than the cost of living, which is something I've been battling with, and think we need to rein in our spending and be smart with that. And in turn, put the money into infrastructure. For example, the Central Okanagan Bypass or Highway 33 extension. That was back when I was council in 1996, they had talked about that thing. And that road was put in the official community plan and then the 10-year capital plan, and it's been removed. Now we don't have it in the 10-year capital plan yet, but there's been funding from the province, and the city is partnering to do a new design. So hopefully it'll be in the 10-year capital plan this year and a review. But that means it can be built within the next 10 years, right? That's the extension from Clement all the way to Highway 33. And it could be obviously a parallel project with Hardy Yards, which is transit yard, and there's going to be a new transit station going out by UBC Okanagan. And the timeline is hoping 2029, 2030, somewhere around there. So that would sort of dovetail with the extension of Highway 33. And in turn, we would have ultimately direct corridor. We're trying to get more efficient and reliable transit system. You need more buses for that. Answer your question, yeah, there's money being put into infrastructure, but it takes time, and then the growth goes faster than filling up the jar at the other end with the infrastructure needs. So that's one of the downfalls of not having the infrastructure in place in a timely manner.
I guess hindsight's like a pretty easy thing to look at, but this might be a difficult question, even though using hindsight. Is there something in the last 20 years that you've seen in Kelowna that you would have changed in terms of anything, policy, OCP, infrastructure? Like, is there one thing that you think, hey, we really missed out here 5 years ago, we should have done this, took a left when we went right?
In fairness, I wasn't on council at the time, but I know that, like I said, that Central Okanagan bypass, we had opportunities to get funding from federal and provincial government, and government of the day decided not to put that road through. And if you're going to continue to add people, the expectation was they're going to ride the bus. Well, it's a false expectation when you don't have a transit service that has the ability to service the needs. But for example, I lived up in Wilden and Magic Estates for several years, and there's no buses that go up Clifton, but look at the densification up Clifton Road, right? So they're working towards that. Needless to say, better infrastructure needs. And then we're planning for expansion, water and sewer. I think they've managed that very well. We've expanded into the Southeast Kelowna, the South Okanagan Mission Irrigation District, and now just recently Glenmore Ellison Irrigation District. So there's a good synergy working there. And I know we work well with Black Mountain Irrigation District and Rutland Irrigation District. There's some great water purveyors there. So I think from a utility perspective, it's in good shape, but the biggest thing would be the roads and planning. And it's difficult because of our topography, right? We have the lake and the mountains, and it's not like the prairies where they just sprawl out another ring road.
Point your direction and throw a road there.
Exactly.
So Ron, I know that we don't have that much time left, so I want to talk about short-term rentals. So what has been your experience so far with the new short-term rentals, and what's the biggest issue that you've been dealing with that?
Well, I personally, once again, didn't support the provincial government's direction in the sense that, coming from senior levels of government, I know often they need to be seen as doing something. And so sometimes there's unintended consequences to their action. And the province figured there's 16,000 properties approximately being rented out in short-term rentals. By putting the hammer and not allowing this policy to continue on in the way it is, they figure there's going to increase the number of units that are on the market for long-term rentals. And to a degree, there might be a few more. Reality is that a lot of these properties, people weren't going to be renting out for long-term because they've kept them for family and, have the flexibility of renting them short-term. One of the big issues is our Rental Tenancy Act.
Amen,
I'm grateful for people that are landlords in this province, but I hear so many horror stories as landlords, and, there are lots of good tenants, but there are some that abuse the system. So being a tourism community with, 2.4 million tourists a year, and we look at the economic impact, my concern is what's it going to do for tourism? And I just had my first meeting as a director of the tourism board, and they brought that up as far as, the concern of purpose-built properties, like on Lakeshore, there was the Shore and the Playa del Sol and
Aqua.
Other properties, even on that were designed. People bought them with the understanding they played by the rules, paid their taxes, and everything's fair. And stroke of a pen, they had those rights removed. And personally, I didn't think that was proper or ethically correct. I mean, government can do it, but I didn't think it's a good move, and I still don't think it's a good move. And we'll see how it unfolds over time, because the other thing I'm hearing from students is that they were renting the home for 8 months, and then the property owner would rent it out for 4 months as an Airbnb. And now they can't do that. So they want the students to rent it for a year, and the student can't afford it. So we've lost the student accommodation, and we've lost summer accommodation, and some unintended consequences I'm hearing from the community.
That, honestly, it sounds like Kelowna, we're like not a college town, but we kind of are. Like, we have a beautiful university. We're a summer town. It feels like it would be a perfect place to do exactly what you just said, where you have all these units that rent to students over obviously the school year, and then rent to people vacationing in the summer. I don't know why we could never figure out how to make that work, but it seemed like just a match made in heaven there.
Do you feel after the provincial election that potentially that might change? Like, how fast could there be an exemption? Like, or are we kind of stuck with this now and we really have to reach that vacancy rate of 3%?
Conservatively speaking, I think it could change.
Okay.
If the Conservatives get in, or Ron, do you honestly think they would change that if they got in, the Conservatives?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the BC United Party have indicated as well. My concern is the split in the vote. So they're trying to, we've heard about what's happening, but I think there's going to be enough pushback from other communities, even if the NDP do get in, that they're going to have to revisit this, and the minister said they will. But I'm very concerned with the future of when a government, does things like that, because as an investor, as a homeowner, they've done it to one person who says they can't do it to another. And one thing we want is certainty and predictability in government, and that's what we don't have right now.
Yeah, I agree. I feel the damage has kind of been done from a confidence level and a financial level at this point. It's going to be pretty tough to recover from that. And like you said, for tourism here, not only has Airbnb been kind of crushed, COVID obviously really hurt our city, the wineries, the fires. Yeah, we're just, for small businesses that are relying on tourism and everyone else that is relying on tourism, hopefully we're getting through this fairly unscathed.
I'm just going to say that the plus side, clamping down on, there were some people that abused the situation for short-term rental, especially in residential areas. And there was people from out of town, out of province, renting out homes for, 8 guys come golfing for a week. I had one situation where apparently 8 ladies were renting a place, and all they had was one visitor, a guy that was helping do the barbecuing, and all he was wearing is an apron, living next door to a family home,
Taylor, where were you that weekend?
I was wearing more than that, Ron. Come on.
I wasn't sure. I just didn't want to call you out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Like, there had to be something happen, and it's hard to police when there's so much vagueness. But
honestly, the rule that just made all the sense in the world is when they said you have to post your business license on the Airbnb listing. Like, that just obviously makes a lot of sense and just makes everyone comply overnight. I feel like that rule alone could have done a lot to help the situation, right?
And I think in fairness, the cities was trying to get Airbnb to be more cooperative and didn't get the cooperation. So pendulum swung a little maybe too far, and we need to bring it back into balance. But you're right. There are other ways of trying to control it, regulate it, so it makes sense. And I'm confident that it'll work out over time, but it's going to be a little rough year maybe ahead.
I still think, and I've said this before, Matt and I are terribly bad with technology, but Kelowna should hire a really good coder. You guys should make your own software and run your own Kelowna Airbnb, make a ton of money. We could reduce taxes and life would be amazing. It's that easy.
You could go one of those pitch programs with Accelerate Okanagan, right?
That is a good idea.
Yeah.
That's right.
But the Airbnb fees, the taxes, everything is very expensive. And then in addition to that, you guys obviously can't collaborate with Airbnb or VRBO or whatever. But if it was literally just a Okanagan-based software company and it was purely you had to be listed on there to get approved? I'm sure there's more complexities than I'm making this out to be, but yeah, there's one option.
You never know. That's entrepreneurial mindset you have. That's great. The seed has been planted.
Before we jump into some of the wrap-up questions, was there anything else that you wanted to speak about, Ron?
No, I just think Kelowna is a beautiful place to live. There's still lots of great things happening. I just think that, we need to be very wise and prudent as we make decisions moving forward. And I try to listen to the concerns I hear from people. And there's lots of people that citizens have lived here for many years and much wiser than me, and learn from them, and also give an opportunity for young people that want to come here. They go to university, as you said, at Okanagan College, UBCO, and they want to live here. And we want to be able to provide that opportunity. I mean, Kelowna has become a much more diverse community from when I first moved here in 1990. If you saw a person of color walking down the street, it's almost like an endangered species. You take and we're coming up with the Kelowna Community Resources, a fantastic facility, and they're expanding and providing great services in our community, and international student schools, which is a challenge right now with the immigration for international students for both private and public post-secondary. But I said there's so many good things. So we got the music awards, the country music awards coming next year. We just got those awards in September, and we have, hopefully going to bid on the Memorial Cup for 2026, and just a lot of festivities and music, arts. It's a great community to raise and family. Like I said, I've got 5 grandkids, and 4 of them are living here right now in Kelowna. And so fortunate to be able to live here all these years, and want to continue to make Kelowna the best place. But we do have some real serious issues with mental health and homelessness, and that's a real passion of mine to focus on that. I know the Mayor's Task Force on Crime and Safety was part of that, and that's one of our priorities, and we're pushing for that as well. Yeah. That facility is sooner or later.
One thing before we wrap up here, kind of the finish off where we started, I just had one question that was in the back of my mind I meant to ask. When someone comes, let's say they actually successfully put a land assembly together and they're looking to develop, it seems like some projects get approved, some don't. As an outsider, you don't really know the ins and outs of it. I guess, what are you guys looking for to approve, let's say, a smaller land assembly? Like, most of our listeners are going to do maybe 3 or 4 lots and build 16 units. Like, what are the golden ticket items the city's looking for in terms of approving those densifications?
Well, it's obviously, looking at the amenities. I mean, the balance is trying to provide affordability. You're saying a 6-plex or 8-plex, is that what you're looking at, or 4-plex?
Yeah.
I mean, you can only do so much as far as, call it sensitively integrating with the neighborhood. So depending on what's in the neighborhood, you want to form in character. And you look at, there's some pretty interesting models. Staff can help. There's some templates they can work with to use from successful models. So don't be afraid to set up a meeting with planning staff. They've got some great experience and practicality of that. And don't be afraid to reach out to council as well and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Nowadays, you don't have to rezone the property, but council still has the opportunity to turn down if there's something that you're doing that's not very respectful of your neighbors. So as a developer, you have the responsibility to meet with your neighbors and work with them and be good neighbors, because some people just try to figure, well, I'm going to do this and railroad it through, and don't talk to council. It's got to be an open dialogue. We want to work with you and be respectful of the fact that you're investing in our community and providing, housing that we need, and hopefully the affordability aspect, so the costs can be kept down. And I know that's something that we have to do as a city as well, with development cost charges is always a challenge, trying to keep them down and keep other permitting fees and everything, because there's a role that the city can do. And I think overall, we work with Urban Development Institute and Canadian Home Builders, and we have a pretty good working relationship with them, is trying to move that through as pipeline as quickly as possible, and be respectful of communities and sense of community. Just don't densify for the sake of densifying, but what fits in to make a better community for all.
Yeah, and you guys have been very open. I mean, speaking with even Matt and I, we've had Brian Smith on, Adam Cheka. So yeah, we appreciate your guys' time. We'll jump into our wrap-up questions here just to finish this off. If you could buy one property in the Okanagan in the next 12 months, what would it be?
Well, can we call the shoe swap the Okanagan? I'm working on a golf course development. It's called Mary Hills Golf Course. It used to be called Hyde Mountain. Yeah. So I do some consulting work, and we have just shy of 100 RV lots been sold, and we're working on that. And then the master plan could be 750 to 1,000 units, working with the regional district on that. It's a look at a kind of a mini Predator Ridge, and it's got so much potential. It's actually got lake view. It's one of the only golf courses you can actually boat to, and they have a boat right up to, or you have a float plane you could fly into, and they'll pick you up and take you to the clubhouse. But it's something that we're working on the next couple of years, so eyes open for that. Other than that, I live in Hall Road, and There's a beautiful piece of property out here, about 20 plus acres. That's pristine, right in the city, and has nature right in urban Mecca. So there's lots of beautiful properties right in Kelowna, the Okanagan. Can't go wrong. That's the first property I bought when I was 20 years old, and real estate has been a good investment for myself and not making any more land. So
yeah,
get a hold of your favorite realtor and mortgage broker and get it done.
You know who they are. All right, Ron, if you could give your 20-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, as far as I said before, in investment perspective, real estate, but as far as I said to my 20-year-olds at the time, and I said to myself back then, is that to treat people how you want to be treated, live life with integrity, don't burn bridges. And as a Christian, I try to treat other people how you want to be treated, respect, and as I say, love your neighbor as yourself, right? And love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind. And that's my life goal. And I try to be a better person and make the world a better place. And one day at a time. It's far from perfect. And I'm a person under construction, so I'll continue to try to work for improvement.
Are we all?
I like that.
Yeah.
What is your favorite charity, or how do you give back?
A variety of ways. There's different organizations we have, whether it's Metro, Freedom Store, Okanagan Valley Pregnancy Care Center, Food Bank, through a local church. A lot of volunteering over the years. Whenever I can, I love playing music. I play drums, so we go jamming in the park or wherever it is. It's always, music is a great way to give back.
We might need to get you for our next intro song. We'll just get a bit of a drum solo from you.
There you go.
I love it.
I have to get my hair on there.
All right, Ron, how can Taylor or how can I listener do to help you?
Well, I'm happy to help however I can. If anybody has any questions, my phone number for the city is 250-864-9537. So 864-9537. Or you can email me at rcannan, that's Cannan, at kelowna.ca.
All right.
Awesome.
We'll do that. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes as well. So.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and I wish you all the best, and keep helping people and families move into Kelowna through your great services that you provide as well. And I'll try to do my best to continue to make a four-season playground for all of us.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Ron.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Stay safe and healthy. God bless.